In our next couple of videos, we're going to be looking at how to do some basic coding in Python before we get into data cleaning, importing data, and our data engineering processes. So let's start by coding in Python, some basics. And in order to work along with us on our Python code, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working through some Python workbooks that are in Google Colab. So if you go to drstephpowers.github.io/BIA. This will take you to a bunch of Python workbooks that are related to my Business Intelligence and Analytics Handbook book. So we're actually in the appendices right now. So we're going to go all the way down and we are in the Intro to Python. So if you click here on Intro to Python, it'll take you into GitHub, which is where all of these Python workbooks are hosted. And they're in Google Colab, which is part of Google Drive. So in order to access this workbook and be able to work through it yourself, you'll need to click where it says Open in Colab. Now, Open in Colab will allow you to see it, but what you really want to do is to be able to run it and to be able to change it. And so what you'll need to do is you'll need to log in. So make sure you're logged into your own Google Drive. And then you want to make a copy to your Google Drive. So logging in lets you run it. Copying to your drive lets you change it. And so make a copy to your Google Drive. It becomes yours and you can change it however you want. The key with Google Colab is unlike the other Google Drive programs like Slides and Google Docs. When you do make changes, you will need to save them. Otherwise, they disappear. So if you are making changes to your own copy that you want to keep, make sure that you save. All right, so I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to go to our slides. In our first video, we are going to look at different types of data. So in Python, we want to identify different types of data, and we've already touched on this a little bit when we were building our data dictionary. So you've actually seen this slide before. And our data dictionary contains the data type just to help us with our Python coding later. So we have string, that is text. So for example, if we wrote hello world, that is text. And so the data type in Python is a string. If we have the number 5, that's a whole number. And so the data type in Python is integer. If we have numbers that can allow for decimals, so not just whole numbers, but any number, then it is what is called a float. If we have information that is true or false, it is called boolean, and BOOL is how it is abbreviated in Python. Then from there, we have lists. And lists, to denote a list, we have hard brackets around the information. So you can have a list that includes a bunch of numbers. You can have a list that includes a bunch of text. So here we have a list of colors, red, green, blue, hard brackets around it. And the key with a list is that the objects can be changed. So we can add to the list, we can replace words in the list, and so on. This is compared to what we call a tuple. A tuple is also multiple items, but with a soft bracket. So you can see there, instead of the hard edges, it's curved brackets. And so a tuple is different from a list because a tuple cannot be changed. We will mostly use lists because we want to be able to amend them. And then we have what is called a dictionary. So my face is partly covering it up. So let me just see if I can't move my face over a little bit. There, I disappeared. And a dictionary is where you have both the variable name and the value. So you can see it's got a curly bracket, and then it has the color, that's the variable name, and then colon, green, that's the value, and then comma, fruit, that's the variable name, and then colon, and then apple. So here, it's similar to a list, but what we have is both the variable names and the values. And so we use curly brackets for dictionaries. Now, if you have some information, oh, I'm moving everything here. See if I can't move my face back. Let's go into Python and look at how we could identify something as to what data type it is. So we can enter information with the assumption that it's one of these data types, but we can also have Python tell us which data type it is. So let me just get out of this and go into our code. And I'm going to go to the top of our code here. So you can see here I have hello world in quotations, and we need to do that so that it knows that it's text. And then if you put type with parentheses around it and I run it, so I hit the little play button right there, then you can see that it tells you it is a string, str. So it has identified that the words hello text or hello world are text, that they are a string. And we could do the same thing with the number 5. We could do type with little parentheses around it, and it identifies that it's an integer. I could change this to a different number. Here's an 8. It's also an integer. If I change this to 8.5, you can see that it identifies as a float. And so the example I have here in the code, of course, is a 5.2 is a float. So integer is a whole number. If it can have a decimal, then it is a float. When we do our linear programming, for example, there's different strategies depending on whether you can have whole numbers only or whether you can have decimals. So that's why we want to be able to identify the type of data that we have, both identify it and then know if we're entering it, what type Python is recognizing it as. So if it is something where it can be flagged as true or false, then it is boolean. So if I put type around the word false, notice there's no parentheses around the word false, so it's not taking it as text. It is taking it as an indicator of true or false. So no parentheses around the word false, and then just the, no quotes around. I know I wasn't saying the right word. No quotes around the word false, like the hello world, just the parentheses for the type identification. So we could change this, for example, to be the word true. Again, no quotations around it. And so if we say, what is the type of the word true? It is boolean. Okay. Now maybe I have the words red, green, and blue with hard brackets. And so if I say, well, what type is this? It says it's a list. If instead you put rounded parentheses here, then what type is that? It recognizes it as a tuple. You can see here where I have color in quotes and then colon green and then comma fruit in quotes and then colon apple. This should be a dictionary. So when I tell it what type is this, it tells me it's a dictionary. It has variables and values in the same input. So take a moment and can you create one of each type of data and verify with Python what it is. So take a second, pause the video, and see if you can't create one of each type. Can you create a string, an integer, a float, a boolean, a list, a tuple, a dictionary? So just examples, right? Anything that is words. So if you are saying x equals, and we say, here's my name, and I put this into the system here, I run it, I can then say, okay, well, what type is x? X is a string. I say, okay, well, what is x if x is 87.5? Remove the stuff here. So if I run this, x is 87.5, then it should tell me that it's a float. If I take the decimal off, make sure you run it first, because if you don't run it, it doesn't know what you did. Then we have type, and now we have an integer. Okay. If I say, okay, well, x is, and then I have, let's do 87, 56, 73. So here I have numbers, and I have parentheses around them. My brain's not working, so I keep confusing in my head parentheses and quotes. So parentheses around them, I say that's what x is. I say type, and you'll notice it's a tuple. If instead I make them hard brackets, And again, I run it, so it has a new value for X. What is the type? You can see it's a list. Okay. We can also build a dictionary. So we have curly brackets for a dictionary. And maybe this is age, colon, 67. What else do we put? Income, and then 100,000. And I say, what type is that? It's a dictionary. So as you are creating data or inputting data into the system, we want to make sure that it is the type of data that we intend it to be. Now, before we leave this topic, let's just go and look at one more thing related to lists. And that is lists can contain a mix of data. So remember, lists are going to be the hard brackets. And so you can have your list be a combination of not just integers or float or string or boolean, but you can have it a combination of all kinds. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to create an empty list. So you can see there's hard brackets there with nothing inside them. And we do this so that we can use a loop to populate them. We can also add to a list using the command append. So x.append means we're going to add to whatever we called x. And here we would be adding to the list the word purple. We can sort our lists. So the code here, x.sort, means you're going to sort whatever you labeled as the list x. And you can see there in the parentheses, there's nothing in there. You can put information in there depending on whether you want it to sort A to Z, Z to A, and so you can specify. We can also get it to identify the index or location of information in our list. So x.index, and then quotations around the word purple, say that it's going to find the index, the location in X of the word purple. Now, the key with Python is that when it does indices, it always starts with 0. So the first place is 0, not 1. It doesn't count 1, 2, 3, 4. It counts starting at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the part that my face is covering, and as we just quickly move my face, can't find a good place to put my face. Python indices always start with 0. So that's an important thing to remember, especially as we're doing things like building loops and ranges. All right, I'll put my face back down here. Let's go back into Python. So we can see here that if we do x equals and we have our mix, we can enter that in. And anytime you call whatever you label, so we said x is equal to hello world, comma 5, comma 4.5, comma false, I can call that to look at it simply by writing in x. Okay. We can create our empty list with x equals hard brackets, and then you can see that it's empty with calling x here. We'll populate that in our next video. We can add information to lists. So here we have x is equal to red, green, and blue. Let's suppose we want to add purple to that list. So we do x.append because we want to append to the list x. And what do we want to append? We want to append purple. So we do this, and now you can see that x contains red, green, blue, and purple. I can append something else. So let's add orange. We do that. Now when we call x, you can see we've now also added orange to it. So we can keep adding to a list. Remember, the difference between a list and a tuple is a list can be changed. We could append yellow to it. We can check and see what's happening. You can see purple, orange, and yellow. We can sort the list. So when we sort it, when it's words and you put nothing inside of the parentheses, it's going to sort it alphabetically. So it was red, green, blue, purple, orange, yellow. Now when we look at it, we have blue and then green, orange, purple, red, and yellow. So it's sorting alphabetically. Perhaps we want to know in this list, blue, green, orange, purple, red, yellow, where the purple is. So x.index purple, it says it's in the third place. Remember, counting starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. find the location of blue, notice that its index is 0. So it's really important to remember in Python, we start counting at 0 instead of 1.